For decades, Abby and Brittany Hensel lived quietly, certain that the world had finally learned to let them breathe. But one unexpected discovery shattered that peace overnight and turned their lives into a global frenzy they never asked for. The shock wasn't a medical emergency or a sudden tragedy. It was something far more personal, something the sisters had tried to protect for years. And when the truth finally surfaced, the world reacted in a way that neither Abby nor Brittany were prepared to face. The secret that was never meant to be public. For most of their lives, Abby and Brittany Hensel had learned to control what the world saw. Growing up in Minnesota as dicephalous conjoined twins meant living under a spotlight they never volunteered for. From their early appearance on The Oprah Winfrey Show in 1996 to the cover of Life magazine and eventually their TLC series in 2012, every moment of their story had been dissected by strangers. So when the cameras finally left and the public turned its attention elsewhere, the twins felt an unfamiliar kind of relief. They became teachers, lived quietly, and built the life they had always wanted. Ordinary, peaceful, and far from curiosity. But in 2024, everything changed. Public records revealed something the Hensels had kept private for nearly 3 years. Abby had quietly married U.S. Army veteran and nurse Josh Bowling on November 13, 2021. The marriage wasn't a publicity move or a reality TV twist. It was deeply personal, an adult decision made by a woman who had lived 31 years seeking normalcy. Friends described the wedding as simple, intimate, and intentional. There was no announcement, no documentary crew, no press release. It was the first time Abby had done something major in life without the world watching. But once the marriage became public, headlines erupted around the world. Social media flooded with confusion, anger, curiosity, praise, and judgment. Strangers debated the legality, ethics, intimacy, and even morality of Abby's marriage, most of them speaking confidently about a life they knew nothing about. Worse, as speculation exploded, a fake TikTok account pretending to represent the twins began posting edited videos, stolen family photos, and insinuations about a pregnancy. The account was never theirs, but millions believed it. The Hensel twins, who once said they just wanted to live like anyone else, suddenly found themselves trapped again, this time not by their condition, but by a digital world that created a narrative they never chose. The TikTok impostor and the rumor that spun out of control. When Abby and Brittany first saw the viral TikTok videos, they weren't angry, they were exhausted. For years, they had worked to reduce their public footprint, private social media accounts, limited online presence, and a carefully protected personal life. But the account claiming to belong to them had been operating quietly since 2021, reposting photos scraped from family Facebook pages and turning private memories into public speculation. At first, the twins ignored it. They assumed it was a stranger seeking attention, maybe someone trying to make easy money through viral content it wasn't worth responding to. But by 2024, the situation escalated. A montage posted by the fake account included a headline reading, "Married and baby on the way." That single frame detonated across the internet. Within days, news outlets, YouTubers, tabloids, and social commentators began publishing analysis, investigations, and confirmations of a pregnancy that never existed. People shared screenshots, slowed the video down frame by frame, and even started arguments over which twin could carry the baby. For Abby and Brittany, two women who had already spent a lifetime being stared at, this digital invasion felt worse than anything they had experienced in person. When Josh Bowling finally stepped in with a public statement through People magazine on September 8th, he didn't hold back. He clarified emphatically that the TikTok was not theirs, had never been theirs, and was run by someone who had stolen photos from his mother's private Facebook account. He explained that the family had made their social media pages private long ago, and the reason they hadn't addressed the fake account earlier was simple. At first, we just assumed it was someone trying to make a quick buck. But when the media began reporting it as fact, the silence had to end. Josh made it clear that he, Abby, and Brittany would not comment on pregnancy rumors, not because they were hiding anything, but because they refused to let strangers dictate the narrative of their family. The real tragedy was not the rumor itself, but what it represented. Despite decades of proving themselves, earning degrees, becoming teachers, forming a blended family, the world still felt entitled to their private lives, their bodies, their choices, their future. And now, a lie created by a stranger had become a global headline they never consented to. The emotional toll of living under a spotlight. They never asked for. For Abby and Brittany, the greatest challenge of being conjoined was never physical. It was the world's constant refusal to let them exist without commentary. Since the day they were born in 1990, doctors, reporters, photographers, and curious strangers had watched their every movement with clinical fascination. Their parents, Patty and Mike, had tried to shield them from unnecessary medical intrusion, refusing tests that weren't essential and demanding doctors treat their daughters as children, not research subjects. But attention outside the hospital was something no parent could control. Even in childhood, the twins learned that stepping into public spaces meant surrendering privacy. People stared openly, whispered, took photos without asking, and treated them like public property rather than two young girls trying to live a normal life. By the time they were teenagers, they had developed coping strategies, ignoring comments, confronting rude strangers, and relying on each other to stay steady. Abby once admitted that they absolutely hated when people photographed them without permission, and Brittany added that they would make them embarrassed if they caught someone doing it. It was the only power they had in moments when others made them feel small. Their TLC reality show in 2012 brought a different kind of exposure. While many viewers saw it as inspiring, the twins understood the cost of letting cameras into their lives. The show documented their college graduation, job interviews, and the transition into adulthood. But after just one season, they walked away. They didn't want fame. They didn't want commentary. They didn't want strangers forming opinions about every detail of their lives. They wanted to teach, build friendships, and grow in peace. Ironically, the quieter their lives became, the more shocking it was when they resurfaced in the news in 2024. Suddenly, millions of people were analyzing their marriage, speculating about their future, and arguing online about decisions that affected no one but the twins themselves. The cruel reality was unavoidable. No matter how much Abby and Brittany gave to the world, through their teaching, their positivity, or their resilience, the world still believed it had a claim on them. The emotional toll of this renewed attention was heavy. They had built a life defined by stability, routine, and love. But once again, strangers had dragged them back into a spotlight they had desperately tried to leave behind. And the consequences of that invasion were only beginning to unfold, the marriage that changed everything. When Abby married Josh Bowling on November 13th, 2021, it wasn't a scandal, a surprise twist, or a media stunt. It was an act of adulthood, private, quiet, and deeply meaningful. Yet the world reacted as if a boundary had been crossed. People who had never met the twins suddenly felt entitled to question Abby's relationship, Brittany's emotional role, and even the legitimacy of the marriage itself. It was a painful reminder that society often treats conjoined twins as a single unit, forgetting they are two women with distinct identities, emotions, preferences, and rights. Josh, a U.S. Army veteran and licensed nurse, had embraced the complexities of Abby and Brittany's unique life long before their wedding. He was thoughtful, patient, and fully aware that loving Abby meant respecting Brittany too. Their relationship evolved slowly, built on mutual respect, countless conversations, and a shared understanding that the world would never fully accept their choices. For Abby, marriage represented something she had never experienced before: legal autonomy. For Brittany, it represented trust. Trust that Abby's husband would protect both their well-being, not just Abby's. The ceremony itself remained a family secret for years. Only a handful of relatives and close friends attended. There were no photographers, no reporters, no curious onlookers. It was the kind of moment the twins had been denied for most of their lives, an important milestone allowed to unfold without cameras or commentary, but once public records exposed the marriage in 2024, the internet reacted with a mix of fascination, confusion, and criticism. Strangers debated everything, from the logistics of intimacy to the ethics of marriage between a conjoined twin and a partner. These conversations were not only invasive but deeply hurtful, reducing Abby and Brittany's humanity to spectacle. Meanwhile, Abby quietly stepped into motherhood through her new family. Josh's daughter, Isabella, suddenly had two stepmothers who treated her with genuine affection. The three of them formed a blended household defined not by unconventional structure, but by stability, love, and everyday routine. School drop-offs, homework, family dinners. It was the normal life the twins had always dreamed of, but the world's reaction transformed it into something far more complicated. Their marriage didn't break their bond, but the outside world's obsession threatened to break the peace they had worked so hard to build. The newborn photo that reignited global obsession. The marriage headlines had barely calmed when another storm hit. In early 2024, Abby and Brittany were quietly spotted in Minnesota, carrying a newborn while running errands. There were no announcements, no interviews, no context. Just a brief moment captured by someone who later sold the story to outlets hungry for sensationalism. Within hours, questions flooded the internet. Was the child theirs? Had Abby given birth? Were the twins now mothers? For Abby and Brittany, it was a devastating déjà vu. They had lived through public scrutiny for decades, but this time it was more personal than anything that had come before. Motherhood had always been a dream for them, one Abby and Brittany openly discussed in the 2006 special Joined for Life, saying, "Yeah, we're going to be moms. We just haven't thought about how it's going to work yet." Their honesty back then had been interpreted with innocence. Now, it was weaponized as evidence by an online world determined to fill in blanks with their own narratives. Medical experts began appearing on talk shows, speculating about pregnancy risks in dicephalous twins. Commentators dissected the ethics. Influencers reacted with exaggerated shock. None of them had confirmation, yet millions consumed the speculation as truth. The Hensel twins had never confirmed whether the baby was part of their family, extended family, or simply a child they were helping care for. But the public didn't care. In a digital age where privacy is treated as optional, the sight of a newborn in their arms became global debate material. Josh Bowling, already battling rumors sparked by the fake Tik Tok account, refused to comment further. He was a father, a nurse, and a veteran, yet suddenly he was being hounded by reporters wanting details about a child they had no right to ask about for Abby and Brittany. The moment symbolized exactly what they feared. Anything they did could be twisted, amplified, and consumed as entertainment. The newborn photo was not a scandal. It was not a revelation. It was a reminder that the world saw them first as a spectacle and only second as human beings, the reality of their lives today, and the price of being extraordinary. By 2025, the twins' lives had stabilized again, but something fundamental had changed their story, once told on their own terms through interviews, documentaries, and a one-season reality show, was now being reshaped without their permission. This was the tragic pattern of their lives. Whenever they achieved privacy, the world found a way to pull them back into the spotlight. Yet despite the pressure, Abby and Brittany remained grounded. They returned to teaching fifth grade at Sunnyside Elementary in New Brighton, Minnesota, where their colleagues praised them for their patience, teamwork, and genuine care for students. In the classroom, they weren't medical anomalies or trending topics. They were simply teachers. Abby specialized in math and science, Brittany in reading and language arts. Their students didn't analyze their anatomy or question their marriage. They saw two caring adults guiding them through schoolwork and life lessons, but outside the school walls, the emotional strain lingered. The twins had worked so hard to carve out a peaceful existence. Private social media, limited public exposure, boundaries carefully built over years, yet the internet repeatedly tore those boundaries down. They couldn't control fake accounts impersonating them. They couldn't control tabloids twisting their silence into confirmation. They couldn't control strangers insisting they had the right to know everything happening in their home. What they could control was their integrity. They continued living with dignity, raising Isabella as part of their blended family, protecting their relationship with Josh, and refusing to let the outside world dictate what milestones they were allowed to have. Their story remained extraordinary, but not because of their anatomy. It was extraordinary because of their resilience, their strength, their insistence on choosing peace over spectacle. The greatest tragedy wasn't that people misunderstood them. It was that people believed they had ownership over their lives. Through everything, rumors, headlines, invasions, they stood together. Exactly as they always had, Abby and Brittany have spent their entire lives proving they deserve privacy, respect, and the right to make decisions just like anyone else. Their journey shows how easily public curiosity can turn into something painful, and how incredible their strength truly is. What do you think people should learn from their story? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real stories that deserve to be told with honesty.